Hello, I'm here to start the week 3 of the Get a Clue Readathon vlog. It's been a good week so far. So, right shortly after I ended the week 2 vlog, we got the announcement at the end of the mid-month bash chaos, the mid-month chaos round over the weekend, that the green team won. So that was super exciting because we haven't won any of the rounds. So it was nice to win something. We worked really hard to win that one. And we didn't win the dining room, unfortunately, but we didn't lose either, so that was good. So we got the new prompt drop for the billiard room, which was to read a book that has a game or competition at the center of it. And my choice for this one is Robots vs. Fairies. This is a short story collection where authors were asked to pick between robots and fairies which one they like the best and write a story around either a robot or a fairy or something like that. I'm 3 stories in. So far they're tied, and I've read 3. I've read 2 fairy stories and then 1 robot story, and I liked the first fairy and the first robot. I did not like the second fairy story. It didn't work for me. The next one I'm going to be reading is by Annalee Newitz, who is an author I've wanted to try. So I'm excited to be reading that. And then the next one's by Sarah Gailey, who I've read a book by and really liked. Then there's a few authors who I don't know in here, and then a lot that I do. There's an Alyssa Wong story, which I'm excited to read. I already read the ones I really loved were Shauna McGuire. She opens this short story collection, and she wrote a really fun one about a theme park. And then Ken Liu wrote a robot story that I really, really enjoyed. And so I'm just feeling good about this short story collection. The only unfortunate thing is I have been doing too much scrolling and not enough reading because I only have this physically. So I need to be really working on reading this to get it done in time. And then I did finish Our House by Louise Candlish. The way this ended, oh my gosh, there was a twist that happened not at the end of the novel that my jaw dropped. I was driving and listening to it, and I literally hand clapped oh my gosh, I was freaking out in the car. And then the way this ended was so interesting, and I don't know what to think about it, because I could totally see someone saying that was an unsatisfying ending, and then I could also see someone being like, that's the perfect ending. And I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's a 5-star. I think there were some things that bothered me a little bit. I thought in some ways the author kind of showed their cards too soon, so that a lot of the book was more learning about why things had happened or learning about the details of why things have happened rather than not understanding anything, which is always a fine balance in a thriller, balancing out whether or not to give your reader information or keep them in the dark and what's going to keep them reading. And I have to say, I was reading this all the way through. I was excited to listen to it and pick it up. I read some of it physically. Most of it was on audio. And I finished this one. Unfortunately, I couldn't turn it in because I still need to read my billiard room because the billiard room prompt dropped before I could finish and turn this one in. So when I was done with this one, I needed an audiobook. So I spun again, and I got another 500-page novel. I almost respun, but then I remembered I have Cress that came in at the library. It was going to be a month, but people must have not wanted it at that point and passed it on, and I was able to grab it. So this is a 550-page book, so lots of points, very easy to read. I am for sure going to finish this before the end of the month. It's the 19th right now when I'm checking in with you, so it's been a few days. And I'm pretty sure we're getting a prompt today or tomorrow, so I'm probably going to be a little bit behind, and hopefully I'll be able to pick something really short for the next room prompt so I can catch up and turn in the bonus books. I think I'm 20 or 30% of the way through Cress, and I'm really enjoying it. I did not like Scarlet as much, but I'm really intrigued about Cress. I will say one thing that bothers me a little bit, it kind of bothers me a little bit about YA in general. It's why Six of Crows never worked for me, is that the things that these teenagers are doing are not realistic to how teenagers are. Like, one of the things I love about the Hunger Games is Katniss is a young woman who is sent into the Hunger Games, and she is acting a lot of times out of fear and panic and just self-preservation. And the characters that we have in stories like the Lunar Chronicles or the Six of Crows duology, things like that, I feel like they don't ring as true for me as real teenagers in life-threatening situations. Like, they're a little too gung-ho to throw themselves into things that get them way over their head, where they are very much in danger. And I think when you're young, you want to avoid it. And I think that's one of the reasons I don't read a lot of YA, is because I can't look past that. I think maybe if I was a teenager reading these teenager stories, I'd be like, yeah, I'd be doing that too. Like, go Cinder, go Scarlet. You know, like, yeah, I'd be in it too. But as an adult, I'm like, no, they're just kids. They wouldn't be doing this. They wouldn't know that. They wouldn't have enough, like, life experience to be making these choices. And so I think that holds me back a little bit from truly loving it, is I'm always reminded that, like, they're 16, they're 17. Yeah, so I find that kind of hard to let that go when I'm reading YA, but I still find this series to be interesting, and I'm enjoying listening to it. I just try to forget that they are teenagers while I'm listening to it, because that really takes me out of the story, where I'm like, a teenager would not be doing that. That is where we're at, and I will update you probably when the next room prompt drops, and I'll let you know whether I'm behind. Spoiler alert, probably. And we'll just see where the week takes us, but feeling good. Once we get past the billiard room, everyone who passes that will be able to make a guess at the end, which is going to be for a lot of points. I will definitely be able to guess, and hopefully a lot of other people will be able to make it at least past the billiard room, even if they fall behind later, and we'll be able to make a lot of guesses, and hopefully some of them will be correct. I don't know if I feel like I've narrowed it down enough to have like a solid guess. I will say that my original guess I made in my Discord, like in my team chat, none of those three things have been disproven yet that we have found. I would be so stoked if I guessed right. However, some of the other teams and how they're guessing makes me think that maybe there's another thing that might be right. So we'll just see how it goes, but I'm feeling pretty good so far. Hello, I'm back with the final update for week 3 of the Get a Clue Readathon. I've been very, very busy today. I have finished and submitted quite a few things. So, the first thing I finished was Our House. I couldn't remember if I had finished this at the end of the week 2 vlog, but I wasn't able to submit it because I started this week behind, because I was reading Robots vs. Fairies, and I didn't get it done in time before the prompt for the study dropped. So I was reading this, and then for the study we needed to do a poll. So I did a poll with like a few things I was looking at reading, and I got chosen What Feasts at Night. My team was very kind to me because they gave me a nice short book, and I actually got the audiobook and listened to this on audio so that I could still focus on this for physical reading. So I listened to the entirety of this. It didn't take long, of course. It was like 4 or 5 hours maybe. And this is just okay for me. I don't know my exact rating right now, but I would say maybe like a 3, maybe a 2.5. I think I might not continue on in this series. We'll see. Because while I liked the first one, What Moves the Dead, this one did not grip me. I felt that I didn't really care about the characters, the setting. There was like one creepy moment right at the end, but honestly, it just felt too similar to What Moves the Dead. It didn't feel like there was enough there for another story. And I know Teen Kingfisher has been really like writing a lot of things, and sometimes I think the quality suffers a bit from her writing so many things so quickly. So I just thought this one was nothing to write home about. Once I was done with it, I was like, could I tell you what it was really about? Barely. It's one of those, like, I read it and I kind of forget it. So this is just okay. And then while I was still working on Robots vs. Fairies, the next prompt dropped. So I couldn't submit any of these because I was still trying to read this one. So then the next prompt dropped, and it was, whatever book you finished last, you need to read a book that starts with the same first letter as your previous book. So for me, it was What Moves the Dead. I needed to read a book that started with a W. So I wandered around my library, didn't see anything that was calling to me. I also knew I needed to read something very short so I could try to catch up. I decided to scroll the graphic novels on Libby, and I ended up finding a graphic novel there. But before I read that graphic novel, I finished Robots vs. Fairies. I skipped a few stories in this. I thought the strongest ones were at the beginning, and then the very final one was strong, but it kind of felt like the middle, definitely there weren't as many strong things. There was one that was connected with another book series. I skipped that. If you watched the week 2 or week 1 vlog, you'll know I did that with C. Robert Cargill's story that was set in a series of his. I really struggle with short stories set in other worlds that have already been established in other books if I haven't read them, because I feel like we're always just missing out on part of the story and it's hard for me to get into it. So I skipped that one. There were a couple where the prose was just really not working for me, so I skipped or skimmed those. But I found some that I really loved. I think probably one of the standouts was the last one. It was called A Fall Counts Anywhere. This is by Catherine M. Valenti, and it was like, sort of like a future world where the humans like make robots and fairies fight each other, and the story is told from the perspective of a robot and a fairy like commentator, like you would get for like any kind of sport or wrestling or something like that. And that was really interesting. I really enjoyed that one. The first one by Shauna McGuire, Build Me a Wonderland, that was another fairy story that was really, really good. It was about like a theme park. And then Ken Liu's Quality Time was a robot story about someone who like creates and designs robots, and that was a really good one. I really enjoyed Second to the Left and Straight On. This was a Peter Pan Tinkerbell retelling, but it was very dark, and I enjoyed that. Just Another Love Song by Kat Howard. This was a really good one. So it was interesting because I felt like a lot of my favorites were written by authors I already knew and loved, and some of the ones written by authors that I didn't know, like, didn't hit well. Overall, I think I would give this like a 3.5. I don't think it was anything like super amazing, but if you like some of these authors, I would suggest maybe, you know, if you could get it from the library, like just reading the authors that you are interested in. It was a fun short story collection. I also think having read a short story collection so soon before this maybe like hurt it a little bit, where I was getting a little tired of short stories and trying to read them quickly can be pretty hard. So overall, this was an okay read. I'm really glad to have read it because I've had it for like 6 years or something, almost since it first came out, and so it was nice to read it, and I can pass this on and it won't need to stay on my shelves any longer. And then I read a graphic novel that was adapted from an older book. It was like a middle grade horror called Wait Till Helen Comes. And it was a cute graphic novel, kind of creepy, but not like terrifying. Probably like less scary than maybe like Goosebumps were, though I didn't really read Goosebumps, but I'm just like trying to make a comparison in my head of what the scariness level was. But it was well written. I could tell a little bit it was adapted from a longer novel because there was a lot of things where it'd be like, and that night, and then the next morning, and it would kind of be like really rapidly going through a lot of time. But I enjoyed reading it. The art was cute. This is about a family a blended family. So the dad, Dave, and his daughter, Heather, and they are one family. And then there's the woman and her kids, Molly and Michael, and Dave and the mom get married, and the kids are having a hard time meshing because Heather will lie about things that Molly and Michael like do to her. Like she'll say, they were so mean, they ran into the woods and they left me alone, and try to get them in trouble, get the parents arguing, and she's a real daddy's girl. And then they move out into the country, and there's this graveyard there that is rumored to be haunted, and it's all about how Heather and Molly and Michael get tangled up in the ghost of this place. It was cute. It's not probably something I'll remember super long, but it worked for the prompt, and I'm excited to be caught up. I am currently listening to Cress by Marissa Meyer. I'm 55% of the way through. So this is probably going to be my final bonus book because I don't know if I'll have time for any other bonus books in the last few days of the readathon. Maybe I would get something else in, but I'm just not sure. And so I'm kind of waiting for the next prompt to drop. So I'll probably do some reading for things that I need to read for like book clubs and things like that, and not like start anything, so that when the prompt drops I can immediately like drop everything and read that. That'll be the final prompt. We are reading. We know that we are not in 2nd or 5th place as of Rainy's vlog update, so that was good. And hopefully we are, I don't think we're in the 1st place. I'm assuming we're like 3rd or 4th, but maybe we're a sleeper team. Maybe that mid-month chaos event just shot us right up to the top. I don't know. So we'll see what happens, and I'm excited to be finishing out this readathon in the next week. So I will see you for the next vlog update then. Bye.